Welcome back to BuildWell, Women Shaping Health Technology. Today's episode is a really special one because we're joined by someone who has deeply shaped how many of us think about building meaningful healthcare products, and also who happens to be a personal mentor to all of the BuildWell babes. We're sitting down with Jessie Juusola, a leader in the digital health and health economics and outcomes research space, and the founder of Anchor Outcomes, where she works with healthcare companies to better measure whether their technologies are actually improving people's lives. Jessie has spent her career helping organizations move beyond the traditional healthcare question of, does this work in theory, to the much more important question, does this work in the real world? In other words, shifting focus from efficacy to effectiveness and helping companies prove the value of the solutions they're building. In this conversation, we talk about Jessie's path to health tech, what health economics and outcomes research actually means in practice, and why measuring real-world impact is becoming one of the most important capabilities in healthcare innovation. We also reflect on leadership, mentorship, and some of the lessons she shared with us over the years as product leaders building in this space. So if you care about building healthcare technology that truly works, not just in theory, but in people's everyday lives, this episode is for you. So let's dive in.
Welcome back to BuildWell. Today we are recording from the Women's Audio Mission here in San Francisco, a nonprofit recording studio dedicated to advancing women and gender-expansive leaders in music, audio, and production, which feels especially meaningful for us, in that we are having conversations with women about shaping health technology in a space built entirely and intentionally to amplify women's voices. So today, I'm going to just scream the whole time. We are in person, and it's like a good, excited energy, I think. Yeah. But we are joined today by Dr. Jessie Juusola, founder and CEO of Anchor Outcomes. Jessie is a nationally recognized leader in health economics and outcomes research, the field that helps determine whether healthcare innovations actually improve patient outcomes and deliver value to the healthcare systems. Mm-hmm. Through Anchor Outcomes, Jessie works with some of the most innovative companies in digital health to generate rigorous evidence around real-world impacts of their solutions. Her work helps organizations move beyond ideas and demonstrate measurable improvements in engagement, health outcomes, and cost savings. Across all of this work, Jessie's helping digital health companies answer one of the most important questions in healthcare innovation: does this actually work in the real world? So we are really excited to talk to Jessie. She is one of our old bosses, all three of us together. Yay. And we have a lot still to learn from her. So let's go get started.
Hey, Jessie. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello.
So tell us a little bit what brought you into health outcomes research. What drew you into the field?
I feel like that started so long ago. I've always been someone who's just really been interested in kind of the intersection of healthcare and quantifying stuff. Mm-hmm. I was kind of a math nerd growing up. Mm-hmm. And in college, I found a major that I was like, whoa, this is like, it just spoke to me. It was basically industrial engineering, but it's called management science and engineering. And it was all about, mathematical modeling to understand real world systems, et cetera. And then I did a master's degree and took a class on health policy modeling and fell in love with it. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. But I went out into the world and worked for a couple years in healthcare consulting. But very quickly realized I didn't want to do that my whole life. And I really wanted to go back and learn from Dr. Margaret Brando, who I had taken that class from. So I went back and did a PhD with her and
casually. Very casually. You're like, okay, I
just drove over really and was like, can I join?
I love it when a mentor brings you in and helps elevate, though. That's great.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I think the work she does is just so important, so interesting. And so I went into that PhD program thinking I'm gonna follow in Margaret's footsteps. I want to be a professor. But I quickly kind of realized I don't think I'm meant to be a professor.
You would have been an amazing professor, and you would have been what she was to you and inspired people. I'm happy that you're not. I think we're all
then we wouldn't have
anyway. All of us kind of moved away from that. So
Yeah, we're glad you chose the path that you did.
Yes. And I have this goal that maybe sometime down later in life I will guest lecture, do something like that. I really love
adjunct professor.
Yes, that would be so much fun.
Yeah. I would have had a crush on you in class for sure.
So that doing that PhD, I was like, okay, yes, I have found my calling. Like, this is what I love to do. Cost effectiveness analysis, just mathematical modeling to understand, basically to quantify impact of things. Like, you don't necessarily have to have data available. You can, you can model to see like, okay, what can we expect would happen?
That's so important though, because like that's reducing patient burden and participant burden, and like the I think the most effective strategy. Like, you don't have to have all the pieces, and I think AI is like helping to even, I think, accentuate that. I mean, the right AI models. Even more so, which I think is really exciting. So I love that you were like passionate about that and that drove you. So
and so coming out of that, I realized I didn't want to be a professor, so I basically was trying to figure out, so how do I do this in industry? How do I do this in the real world? And the reality is, obviously they're like in pharma and biotech, et cetera, they kind of have established groups doing this type of work. They're HEOR groups. But it's kind of just like you're following, just kind of following your playlist or I can't think of the word.
the best things. They're like entrenched in industry. They've been doing this a long time, and they are
It's like
rigid.
a checklist.
Yes. And that's less exciting to me. I like kind of just being a bit more innovative with it, right? And so when I was coming out of grad school, molecular diagnostics were kind of like the cutting edge of things. This is like before digital health was even a thing. And so that's where I went first. And you're at a company where there isn't this established playbook of what you do, but you have to prove your value to
What were these,
potential
like
customers.
Early biopharma or early like pharmaceutical companies?
So no, diagnostics. So molecular diagnostics. Like you might know Cologuard, Natera. Exactly.
Natera.
Yep. So this was like the early days of that. Unfortunately, the company I was at didn't end up lasting, but just learned a ton in that space. And it was exactly that. It's like, how do we actually prove our value? And outside of kind of these rigid, like, oh, this is what you do. Just, it's much more like, let's actually really think about the value story. How do we have the impact? How do we shape messaging to, users of the product? Like, if they're selling to clinicians, but also selling to payers, how are you positioning the product to actually really get the best value out of it? So I did that for a couple of years. And then that's when digital health was like starting to take off. And so digital health is like the best space to play in this, because it's like, there's still a bunch of companies out there that are still like the Wild West. Like they're just, sometimes it's like, what are you doing?
And they can't answer you.
But some that are like making a huge difference. There's a very clear like mission, and it gives a lot of flexibility, I think, in what you're trying to do as well too. So
But at that first gig, Jessie, you were essentially like creating the framework of how to measure this or measure. I know we're going to talk about efficacy and effectiveness, but you were thinking about that like in that first role, right? Because it was pretty new.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And it was, there were a lot of, there's kind of straightforward things like, okay, we wanted to do a cost effectiveness analysis, even though payers in the US don't care as much. Some people do realize that matters. We do like budget impact model, but it was also about how do we position the product? Because the diagnostic you can use in different ways, right? You can use at different points in kind of a patient journey. And so it was basically kind of trying to really understand where you can get the value, what are the different levers that can be pulled, and then how does that fit in with how you should position the product. So it was fun. It was like
making your own model. Well, what is health economics and outcomes research? I think it is a newer field, and it isn't well understood, especially in the industry. Like, how would you define it, and what is its importance level associated with it?
I think of it just as being able to quantify the impact on outcomes and economics. And so, I think when people think about like digital health or healthcare, there's so many different facets to it. And so when I think of HEOR, it's really focused on the products that actually impact patients. So it's not like your systems that make your company more efficient. It's how do you actually make...
Those are important too. Shout out to enterprise products, okay?
Yes, but it's what is the impact that a product can have on the actual patient. And so much of it then when you have better outcomes, you have lower costs. If you're sometimes so it's a simple
it's like crazy what usability does just a little bit.
right If you can actually have people be healthier, they don't cost as much. So
what are like the type of models that you're using to quantify that? Usually you said like cost analysis and things like that, and potentially predictive modeling. Are those sort of your main bread and butter in terms of doing that type of work?
So it's actually, I would say, multi-pronged. So there's some aspects of it that's the modeling. Obviously, that's something I get really passionate about and love doing. And that's, again, you can do that before you have a lot of data.
Yeah.
But once you have data, you actually really need to utilize that as well. So with my clients, I do a lot of, I do a whole range. So sometimes it's the ROI modeling where you don't have the data yet, or you're like, okay, this is how I'm going to build the model. I could do an analysis to get this input for the model, and that'd be super helpful. But then additionally, it's, a huge piece is how do we mine our existing data? And the beautiful thing about digital health is you don't have to just wait until like something is like, okay, now this is like fully ready and we have customers and now we're going to launch it. It's like it gets used along the way. And so you're building your data sets from day one.
Yeah.
You really need to get the value out of those data sets. And so I work with a lot of my customers is we're working with that. It's like, we have this existing data. What do we do with it? That's usually like question number one.
Yeah.
Like, what are the research questions we can answer?
Yeah.
How do we do that? And then it's like, okay, but what are the gaps? Do we need to run a prospective study? Do we need to try to figure out how to acquire some other data set? So it's that whole spectrum. It's from, we have no data, let's build a model, all the way to like, we need to generate more data, run a study.
Yeah.
How has that changed over time, especially with more data being generated at scale compared to working with diagnostic groups back in the day? Like, how has that shifted, or how has that narrative shifted in the customers you talk to?
I think it's kind of more of the same. Everyone starts from nothing, right? And so I end up working with companies at different stages. So it kind of depends on who I'm working with at any given point. Like I have a new client right now who's like, I have so much data. And then I'm like, you actually only have data on like 120 patients. But that's cool. Let's do something with that.
It's a starting point.
I love that.
So interesting.
Put it in perspective.
Yeah.
You're like, I love that you think your assumptions.
But then, it's like other customers, it's like they have been building a data set forever and haven't been thinking about it in this way. So they're like, oh, I actually have data on 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Great. Like, let's go. Let's do something.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the most surprising thing. Like, I feel like people have so much data and aren't necessarily
Don't know how to
doing
use it.
anything. And that's, I think, the surprising thing in this field. People don't have these large-scale research analytics or health economics and outcomes research team, which is why I think Anchor Outcomes is most important. So, I mean, I'd love to understand what gap you did see in the digital health field to really make you want to build Anchor Outcomes.
Kelly, that's an amazing question. Thank you for that. Because it was a
welcome.
very clear.
It's not written down at all. I came up with that organically. I'm really quick on my feet. I do improv, so I don't.
I see you doing improv though. I think I told you that before.
But it really presented itself to me like very crystal clear. So after I left Evidation,
Shout out Evidation.
I had an amazing team there. That was the saddest part of leaving.
Guys, stop.
Can you name names? No, I'm just kidding.
Who was your favorite?
I wanted to go to a company where the question of, or the being able to value the impact that the product had on outcomes was core to the business model. Because at Evidation, we were doing that for other companies,
Right.
but it wasn't core to Evidation's business model.
yeah.
So it kind of, I kind of reached, like, there wasn't more growth for me at Evidation. So I wanted to go somewhere where that would be much more central to the business model.
And you just made it yourself. You were like, I gotta go somewhere that's like gonna have an even bigger impact, but I'm gonna make it myself. I love that vibe.
No, there was
You
a
are
step.
fierce like nobody's business.
There was a step in the middle though, Kelly.
Oh yes.
So I go to this
Yes.
series, like Series A, Series B, I don't remember exactly what series, early startup. And
We are in San Francisco right now. So we're in startup land.
and like designed the role for myself. It's like, okay, this is what you all need. They were like, yes, like
So cool.
their investor was all about it. And then you get there and you realize, like, often in these early companies, they're just not really ready for it yet. They don't really know how it fits in the org structure, even if they like think they do. And so I realized, like, okay, no, they're not actually ready for like an FTE. They're not really going to build it into the business model in the way that I would want to. And so kind of looking around and trying to figure out where to go next, that conundrum was like everywhere. And it's like, am I going to just try find the needle in the haystack of the perfect company that really does want to build this in, like so core to their business? Or do I go build, a boutique consultancy who fills that gap for all of these companies who don't know how to fit it into their business model? It can be like, well, you don't have to.
Not yet.
Let me help you build it.
It's That's
And at some point,
awesome.
Some of them do build it into the business model.
Yeah.
Like Omada has been one from day one that's been all about evidence.
Yeah.
but they partner out. They like are historic for partnering out. I mean, we did that with Evidation, and you're doing it with Anchor Outcomes as well. So but they knew it was a value add, but they also knew it didn't necessarily fit within their org structure.
Yeah, well, it does though. So with Anchor, I was kind of a little bit of a stopgap in between when they had some departures and then like rebuilding the team. So they now they've got their, I don't know exactly what they call it, but maybe it's HGOR. But they have their own team, and it's like highly functional. And they absolutely partner out for actually running studies, things like that. But I would say they're a great example of, really understanding the value of this type of function early and prioritizing it and building that as part of the company. A lot of other companies, I think they struggle to, there's just so many priorities, right? When you're small and you're building and you've got limited resources, and where do you focus your resources? And so it works really nicely to hire an Anchor Outcomes, and then you don't have to deal with, where does this fit in my org structure? How, you can think of budgeting in a different way. It's like, we budget for this expense rather than like, I'm building a team around it.
Jessie, that is the absolute coolest. You are like such a mission-driven person. Like, what is your personal mission? Because again, not a lot of people would go out and be like, you know what I'm really passionate about doesn't fit within the current working model of all of these things. Let me just build it. Like, that is a huge step and takes a lot of courage and I think like gumption just in general. But you just have such like a core mission. What is the mission? What is that thing that drives you? What are you trying to do in this world for us and for your kids?
Make healthcare more efficient. That's like all I've ever wanted. Is like, there's so much opportunity to do it. And with technology, we can do this. So people get like scared about AI. I think AI, there's so much inefficiency in healthcare. I think there's just so much opportunity where I don't even think there's going to be like workforce reduction in healthcare. It's like we are going to actually be able to deploy the workforce in a way that we've never done before and actually improve outcomes.
100%. There's so much things that can be automated in terms of like the bureaucratic component of managing paperwork, taking notes. And I think what we've all talked about a lot, especially even from Evidation, is that precision medicine model as well. Thinking about again, if it's done correctly, there's like a bunch of ways to do this incorrectly. But we've talked about this a lot on the podcast in terms of like, it's an inevitable and it's an exciting place to be. There are like pros and cons to it, but I always akin it to sequencing the human genome. Like, it's going to happen anyway, and there's a lot of really cool stuff, but then all of a sudden people start cloning things, and that's where like the ethics boards need to come in and be like, oh my God, guys, like stop. Like, no. So that's so cool, Jessie. I like love it. You're going to make it healthier for us, so.
Well, thank you. I'm trying. I think the precision medicine piece it's spot on. It's like there's so much that we don't know, or that we don't have the capacity, or we haven't had the capacity to understand and to be able to kind of, actually preempt something. Like if you can actually identify something before it happens and head it off. I think that's where there's a ton of opportunity.
Truly.
And we've not even scratched the surface on things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they have like Alzheimer's, you start having like immediate symptoms 30 years before it actually develops. And that's like time that you could actually be resolving it, reducing cost in, cost in the future, or any type of chronic care. I mean, I think about the cancer care and how many people actually go bankrupt just trying to save a life. It makes me so sad. And like to know how many people die, essentially the mortality rates that are directly associated with inefficiencies and like not understanding health or your personal health, especially women. Oh my God. Like, anyway, fun stuff. I'm thinking about it. So you come into digital health spaces and help support them in finding their evidence and their different components. So I think we talked about it a little bit, the difference between efficacy and effectiveness. Would love to hear from you what that means and like how Anchor Outcomes drives that.
This is a concept that I think is so important, and so many people don't really understand. And people use the terms interchangeably, fine. But I think what's really cool about digital health is I think that efficacy is not even really a thing, because efficacy is just like in a perfect scenario. It's like, dose response. It's, in pharma, if someone is taking the med exactly perfectly.
Right.
But what digital health the products themselves are about how you get someone to interact.
Yeah.
So it's not that there is
a perfect.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's a sterile
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
for it.
So you really only care about effectiveness, which is what's actually happening.
Right,
What's
right.
what's the actual impact in the real world, and so in all studies of digital health, like that's what we're looking at, because a core piece of the product itself is how someone is interacting with it, and are you getting the right engagement or whatever you need from that person? Is the product making that happen? That's the key component.
I think that is so important and core to building an effective strategy. And I love that you come with that perspective, because I do think in the clinical research world, women were excluded because we had additional hormones that were a weird covariate that you had to take into account. And you're like coming like, no, absolutely not. Like everybody should be included. And then I think, especially from an effectiveness perspective, you should see who it's not hitting and things like that. I'd love to understand too, your thought process and thinking how this, these types of strategies build inclusion and equity within the healthcare field, and like why this feels important in that space.
I think that so technology has always had the opportunity to be kind of like the field leveler, right? And so and so much of it is about like bringing access to things that maybe in the past, like only you had to live a certain place, have access to this really great healthcare center.
Have like a 30-year relationship with your doctor, and then they delivered your kids, and then like take care of them too.
Also be a white male that's like over 50.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We should have done that. We should have done that.
Next time,
guys.
next life.
Next time.
So I think that's such a large part of the value of digital health, is that it's all about like how do we actually really expand access and make everything more achievable for everyone. But as part of that, you have to understand, like you said, what is working for who, and are there differences in different populations? And so ensuring that you not only have data from different types of populations, a diversity of, gender, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic, et cetera, and then actually do those cuts and make sure that that's happening there. One thing I find in some of these early stage companies, or sometimes not even early stage, is they like don't want to collect.
Not naming names. But that was call out. That was a call out for sure.
It's like they're sensitive. They're like, oh, I don't want to collect race, ethnicity data.
They don't.
Gender.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's going to make my user uncomfortable. I'm like, well, then how do you know if this is only working for white men over 50?
Right.
Like collect more of that. I've always been
paradigm
confused about like sexual orientation too, and
Yes.
that's like a limited component. And asking these specific questions in like a census approved way, and you're like, I don't know, that's the right way to do it. So.
Although we now, the federal research guidelines now do recommend asking race, ethnicity as one question, because that is how people think about it. Like no one's like, oh, well, I'm Hispanic, but that's not my race. That's
it's
it's like,
so confusing.
Yeah.
You're like, I just went through like these 10 options, and now I have these 3 options that I don't know. It's just it's a little disorienting.
Yeah, and it lacks interoperability. I think from like a global perspective.
Yeah,
we're like the only
totally.
country that is doing it in this like
Asking
crazy
you.
way. Like, are you Hispanic or Latino or not?
Yeah, or not.
No.
Are you in or out?
Out,
like,
in or
okay.
out. And if you are, you're supposed to set white too.
Yeah, I know.
and then the select one thing that drives me nuts.
I have talked to so many researchers that are like, let's put them in a nice box, and it's like, I don't know.
How does that help? Like, how does that benefit?
I mean, it makes like the analysis
Cleaner
simpler.
tabs,
Like
I guess?
from your
Single
perspective,
select?
you
I don't know.
can design for that, and like you can run an analysis with complex information, multifaceted individualities and identity. Anyway, so we could go forever there. Well, why do you think this feels really important? I think in the digital health space versus like the traditional healthcare space, like why do we feel like this needs to? I think it is kind of measured in the traditional healthcare space, but I think it is a lot of times like within claims data or things like that. Why is this needed in the digital health space?
In terms of understanding the diversity of populations?
And making sure you have a robust health economics and outcomes research team.
Got it. Okay. I mean, these companies are not operating under, a standard playbook. And so in order to convince someone that it's worth paying for their product, they actually have to show the value. So it's some of these companies start thinking they can be DTC, and they all shift at some point. Like
Health plans. Like,
Yep.
someone to pay for this.
all the payers.
When they learn
Yeah.
about how the healthcare system money flows.
Why is it so challenging to be DTC, direct to consumer? Why do you feel like so challenging to be in that market specifically, or is it just individuals don't know that they should be using these types of, or don't know that these types of tools are on the market for them?
I think people are in the U.S., and this could be different in different markets, of course, but in the U.S., people are used to having health insurance. Most people are insured, thanks to the ACA.
Crazy.
So people are used to, healthcare gets covered by insurance, and maybe I have a copay, maybe I have coinsurance, but as a society, we're just not used to paying for healthcare out of pocket. So, there might be certain, obviously cosmetic things, our Botox, et cetera, et cetera. Sure, we pay out of pocket for that. But you really limit, I think you really limit your available market if you try to just go DTC. When if you have a product that actually can improve outcomes, then it's like a no-brainer. Okay, so prove that out, and then the payers, maybe it's health systems, whoever it is,
the narrative's stronger, much stronger.
Exactly. Cosmetic Botox is not improving anyone's health outcomes. So we don't want to say
that. Some people's mental health,
mental health
drastically improved. Everybody's beautiful in any age. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying beauty's personal.
You do you.
You do you.
Maybe we should do a model, huh?
Yeah.
You think that maybe it does improve?
100%. The amount of people that I hear that are thriving on Botox and it helps their day to day is, that again is a very small sample size.
Small n, but still not zero.
A lot of white biddies from upstate New York. So just keep that in mind. Very niche.
Limited data set for sure.
What do you think are the important things to prove when talking to payers then? What are the things that they're looking for in order to show efficacy or effectiveness? And what makes it and breaks it from that perspective?
Yeah, so cost savings obviously is a big piece of it. So if you do have some sort of intervention that can reduce unnecessary emergency department visits, inpatient, anything like that, where there's these really big cost, big ticket items that you can have an impact on, that's huge. That's if you have a clear link to that, that's great. You can kind of show that story easily. It's more complicated when you're talking about more preventive type things with longer time frames. But you can still get there, right? It's really nice when you have that kind of clean, crisp, short-term story. That does that.
We all wish for that in healthcare.
Question was how do you deal with a long tail?
We'll see.
But I think the other piece of it that's so key is you have to show engagement with your product, because I think payers are sick of being okay, I'm going to cover this thing, but if no one uses it, then you're not getting any impact out of it. And so recognizing that it's not just that if people use it, you have these outcomes, but that people are actually using it.
Right, first step is actual adoption of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do you then work, again, this is a product management podcast, so, but how do you work, again, running these types of research projects and studies, working with product and development teams to be you're lacking or missing in this particular area, and help with building that strategy or ideations of stickiness or usability, or, being able to share the research isn't matching what you guys are claiming. These are the types of shifts you need to make.
I think so that is obviously so critical and key. And, I love when I have clients where, that's kind of from day one, they want this to be informing product. They want to be, some of it's as easy as what data you're collecting. If you're not collecting race and ethnicity, come on, can you just start collecting that?
Okay,
please?
shout out. Everybody needs to be collecting demographic information. We know it's sensitive, but it does help in terms of understanding how you're impacting people's health and the diverse range that you have with your product.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So some of it's as easy as that, really low hanging fruit. That's often kind of one of the first things when I'm coming in with a new client is just hey guys, there's these 3 really simple things that if you just implement these simple things, that could actually really improve your ability to tell this story, to actually quantify your story. And obviously the product teams are always weighing it against all the other, objectives and priorities. And so I understand that can be tough, but I think then when it works really nicely is when you have a really collaborative, well-functioning executive team where the product leader and the, whether it's clinical or research or whatever kind of function is whatever leadership role is overseeing some of kind of the outcomes research, et cetera. If they can collaborate really well together, that's key. Like, I think we saw that at Omada, like when Carolyn Jasic was there, and your old boss.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes.
Shout out Mike Hanlock.
Yes. I think he and Carolyn worked so well together. And you saw that in how Omada then was able to build their company in that way with an actual real focus on understanding the value of and the impact of the products. So I think that's key. Like, I think some digital health companies, it's like they'll hire a chief medical officer who's more of a figurehead and who isn't actually as involved in the day-to-day.
It's important for board meetings to have that.
Good face.
But it's harder to then actually make the product changes that you need happen if you don't have the right kind of embedded champion in-house.
So off of that, where do you feel like some of the major shortcomings are right now in the industry with like leading with evidence approach, leading with showing value, specifically in digital health? Like where do you think they should be filling these gaps a little bit more, or things that you've seen in your industry experience on and working with these companies?
I think prioritizing budget for this stuff. You have to pay for it, right? And a lot of companies think they can get by without it, and they want to prioritize their budget elsewhere. It's not going to work, right? You have to, maybe you have some other sort of, depending on kind of what your goal is. Most companies in this space are very mission driven, which is great. Like healthcare is a very mission driven place to be. Maybe that's another reason I love being in this space. Like our old Evidation team, everyone was so mission driven. Like,
oh my God, we would
so
bleed for
motivated.
these patients.
We actually all have tattoos.
Dig ups, shout out.
Oh my God.
No, but I think that's a really important thing. I think, especially in product management, I feel like so many times we are driven by timelines and trying to get a product out that you aren't able to fully vet whether or not this is the right thing to build for individuals, because you have these timelines, you have this budget, and you're trying to get shareholder value, which again, I think is important. You need money to pay for things, but you forget about the most important voices, or you forget about market fit and user fit. And I think making sure, taking a step back from a product perspective, we should always be thinking about like the why we're doing it and if it's going to be effective, and ensuring you have the time to experiment. And like I think that's like you need time and capital to be able to run user research, to run A/B testing, and to run like fully validated studies at certain points too. So I don't know.
I'm curious, Jessie, have you like observed patterns within these companies where you're saying like, okay, the important thing is for them to actually allocate budget for this? Like, do you see companies coming to you at a stage where they're like, okay, the DTC path is not working for us, like help? Like, are there common patterns, or are you seeing companies coming to you across the spectrum?
I would say all of the above. That's usually, if they're coming to me, they realize they know that they need to prove their impact, because otherwise they wouldn't come to me.
They're like, call Jessie Stat.
Often
Anybody who has a problem, call Jessie Stat. She's ready. Anchor Outcomes is ready.
So it's often like when, because oftentimes people, they do start D2C, right? Because that's the starting point, and that's how you start building your data sets, et cetera.
Totally.
Great.
Yeah.
And so then they're often coming to me when they're like, okay, now the push is going commercial, and so now we really need to have the materials
Prove
behind
that.
that. Our salespeople need a story. They need content.
They need real data to
They
show
need
it
some
works.
data.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Does it work?
So they're often coming at that point, but some, I think the wonderful thing is some of people just like understand that from day one. So I've worked with some companies at very early stage, where I had worked with one like pre-product where they were like, we need to like understand our ROI model.
You're like, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I am ready. I've never been more ready. Tap me in, coach.
And then you can shape the product from the beginning to make sure that you're actually able to then quantify that have real impact and quantify it. Collect the right data sets from day one. Like position the products in the right way.
For a product.
Not like cost savings. You're also cost savings for the business on their actual development. That's really cool.
Well, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. And I am we want to really talk about you, I think, as a leader and as a manager. So I know that you have shaped my career, and talking to these ladies definitely helped to shape and lead their careers, and been just such an amazing mentor and like the perfect depiction of a leader who drives in making tangible change, trusts us in our professional ability to make decisions and like actually make things happen. So we've talked and could venerate you all fucking day, if I'm going to be honest. But how do you, and again, I think it's still championing, you hire people that you have worked with in the past. I think you just hired Shefali to work at Anchor Outcomes. And I think that's like a beautiful thing. How do you feel like what do you feel like your leadership style is, and how do you feel like it has evolved over the last couple of years, especially in now being a CEO for your own company?
So growth is just where I am. It's slower. I'm kind of growing Anchor at my own pace. And so it looks very different than the pace at Evidation, for example. You know, I started at Evidation when we were 4 people. And I think when I left, the HOR team was over 20, maybe 25, something like that.
Damn.
So, you know, just my own team.
Really?
That's crazy. So yeah, it's different at Anchor just because it's like it's a different, just a different slope, right?
Yeah,
Which is, you know, that's where we are, and it's all good. But I would say I do miss in some ways the pace of you know, the more of like the Evidation experience. Because you're figuring out like what are the gaps and how do I build a team to meet those gaps. And when you can do it on kind of that more accelerated timeline, it's exciting. And so like just thinking about leadership style, it's like, how do I fill the gaps? Like you have to identify the gaps and then fill them. And you know, starting out, it was I would say like my early role at Evidation is very similar to my role now, where it's like I'm the subject matter expert. And then figuring out how to kind of grow that function. You know, at Evidation, it was like, I knew that I needed another person kind of with my type of expertise early, because in order to kind of grow like that, it's you need that core of expertise. And so Shefali was the first hire. And then this kind of parallel at Anchor Outcomes where... Well, she wasn't like the first hire,
You were
but
like copy paste,
an early one.
Well, you're trying to like clone yourself, and she's a very similar background and like understands it and is very mission driven as well. So
exactly, and then from there you're able to kind of highlight these specific gaps. Like I'm not someone who's like coding up analyses. That's never been me. I'm not going to do code review. So that's always like,
don't ask her.
That's always like you know, I need to fill that gap. So that was one of the first gaps too at Anchor that I needed to fill. Because some of my clients have that in-house, but a lot of them don't. And I want to be able to kind of flex my services, Anchor services, to what they need and what they have available. And so, you know, whether it's overseeing someone on their side who's running analysis, or if it's Anchor Outcomes, just kind of doing the full package. So it's really like what are the gaps that need to be filled? And so like at Evidation, for example, it was, okay, first I need to clone myself. Then I want to say you guys were
like a research
next.
team. Like
just
how do we actually get it
like
done?
operations. Like let's actually, I mean, and
implement
the team you guys were so product focused. Like you were just working directly with the product team because, you know, what we were doing there was so like like we couldn't do it without the product.
Right. It really drastically impacted like patient
Influenced
experience
a lot.
and like the outcomes that we actually achieved. So it was a huge thing.
Exactly. So it was, you know, okay, now I need someone who is really smart and gets what we're doing. I think that's such a key in hiring is like you need to like understand the core of what you're doing in these types of more complex roles, like especially with product. You need to understand like what is the core of what this product needs to do. And that can be hard to find in hiring. I don't know if you guys have
experiencing that
right
right now. I mean, I heard the stat the other day where 1 out of 3 times you hire, they might be wrong. the wrong candidate. And that's such a that's such a high rate.
I mean, that's why it takes so long to hire people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do feel like you built a rock star team.
Yeah.
Like it. We were tight. Like we're still friends.
We're all everyone is still very tight.
We're gonna have like a couple people come to the studio. Most of people are evidationers that you built. That's you seeing the expertise. But I also think, like I said, trusting your team. You're not a micromanager. You really allow people to, like I said, make decisions, and you're just there to be like, whatever she said, do that one. But then also critique in the immediate moment. And I think in a really positive, constructive way, not like micromanaging. So.
I mean, who has time to micromanage? Like, isn't the whole point of building a team so that you
Seems tiring.
You'd be surprised. Like, you have no ego associated. You are solving. It's like us against the problem, which is like the most beautiful thing. Jessie, you are. God, I love hanging out with you. Like, you're the best.
So it was interesting. I would be curious to hear what you guys think about this. At Evidation, I would occasionally get feedback that I was in support of my team and not the company. And I'm like, that makes zero sense because
like who said that? Who said that?
I'm not going to name names.
Guys,
But it's like we are the company. That it just made no sense to me. I'm like, we are here working towards this mission. That's what my team is doing. I'm trying to enable my team. So it just, I didn't understand.
It's a disjointed thing. I mean, it feels like now at Anchor, you're able to really come into that space and make it is led with that type of intention. And so what type of advice would you give leaders in this space, or what do you wish you could impart to the leaders in this space when they're taking on leadership roles as a research company or a technological company or something like that?
Like, understand the importance of hiring well, and then trust your team. Like, you are going to advance if you can take some stuff off your plate so you can operate at the next level. Like, you can't get there if you're still doing all the micromanaging stuff. Like, if you're doing all the individual contributor work, you're not going to have time to tackle the bigger problems. And so, like, lead in that way. Focus on, like, okay, these problems are now taken care of. I need to work on these problems and these problems.
Big picture.
Exactly.
Focus on that big picture.
Like, you have to be thinking big picture. You have to, as you kind of advance through your career, what becomes more and more important is that you're seeing, the forest for the trees, for example. Like, if you stay in the trees, you're never going to get anywhere. You're just going to be lost.
You're going to it's a redwood forest or it's a pine tree forest. Anyway.
Just be like wandering around.
You hired the people for a reason.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You did hire some pretty cool people.
Yes, I miss my team. You guys were the best.
Well, we're going to close this out now. We want to understand what it looks like for you on like a day-to-day. What is a day in the life of the CEO of Anchor Outcomes? What does this look like?
It varies a lot. It's wonderful to have complete autonomy. I choose what I take on.
Your Mini Cooper, like maybe hanging out, going to a co-working space.
The boss lady.
I work from home a lot, which can be, a little lonely. But like so many companies now, they're not going to the office either. So most of my clients are working remotely. So there's, we do everything on Zoom and it works. I've got a couple new clients who go to co-working spaces in SF sometimes. So, and in the past, I've had some of those too, where you will meet in person sometimes, which is really nice. But, the day in the life now looks very different than it did at Evidation, where it was running a large team. Now, so much of what I'm doing is like, I'm actually thinking a lot. Like, I'm like constantly thinking. Sometimes it's exhausting. But I'm like generating from nothing. Like, there's there's very little of my day to day that's reactive.
Wait, that's amazing.
That's great.
How?
Well, it's exhausting.
Oh my God.
That sounds like a very invigorating exhausting.
But it's great to also just have a lot of autonomy, right? So it's if Remy has a Taekwondo demonstration, like,
very cool.
I'm just
so
black.
Cool.
I'm not going to schedule something over it, right? Like,
what belt are they? What color?
he is a yellow belt.
Yes.
Oh, he's got 2 stripes so far.
Oh.
Does he practice on you?
He tries. Wait, we probably should do that more often. But it's a mix of just staying up on all the relevant news in the field. Like, I try to make sure I kind of always have a have, you know, a finger on the pulse of what's going on in space, talking to potential new clients, and then just, you know, working on existing projects. Like, with, you know, when I start with a new client, there's kind of an immersion phase where you really got to like figure out their product, their space, their data. Who do I talk to? Figure out the company, figure out all your people. But a lot of my clients, really, we kind of work together for a long time. And some of them kind of like, you know, there'll be a lull and then they'll pop up with a project and then a lull again. And that's really nice because then you have such a solid foundation with them. And so a new project can just pop up and you can just like jump right in. And so it's nice to kind of have that consistency as well. But yeah, sometimes it's writing papers for medical journals. Sometimes it's like
Get those pubs
emailing those editors being like, why did my fast track fee not actually account to a review yet? Where is my review? Sometimes it's building an ROI model, you know, reading a lot of journal articles, doing like working sessions with Shefali. Yeah, it's nice. I don't have like a crazy jam-packed call schedule because again, a lot of my day-to-day is actually like trying to generate things and think.
Proactive. I mean, I love that, being proactive as opposed to reactive. And I think that shows where you are creating your company from. Like, you understand what to build and then also build those relationships, because that foundational knowledge actually enhances the research that you're able to actually contribute. So exciting, Jessie. All right, any last questions for Jessie?
No questions.
Nope.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Jessie.
for all
that was
the
really
time.
fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, build well, guys.
Bye.
Bye.